Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and family. Welcome back. Welcome once again to the Abundant Way Ministries Tuesday evening empowerment session series. Is that too many S's?
Yeah. Good evening. I'm just trying to make sure we are on and y'all can see us. And if you can, put it in the comments. It may just be my connection.
Yeah. So we want you guys to go ahead and like and share this broadcast.
Good evening, Robin.
Good evening, Robin Davis. That's my sister in the house. You all need to like and share. And right now, I want you to invite everybody you can. So I'm looking for my scribe out there because Mahogany, where you at? We might have a Bible verse for you. So today, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the build up. You've heard me talk about it. We've got a special guest in the house this evening. And before we bring him on, I just want to remind you all what we've been talking about for the month of June. We've been talking about how social justice plays a very important role in economic empowerment. You know, this is the Abundant Way Ministries. We are a faith-based economic empowerment marketplace ministry. We're all about empowering the people. Hey, Mahogany.
Hey, Mahogany.
But one thing we come to understand, we were talking about generational wealth last month and how important that is, but we realized that you cannot have generational wealth and economic empowerment unless we also have justice, social justice, because no matter how hard we try, no matter where our mind is in terms of our desire for wanting wealth, you know, building wealth for our communities, for the generations to come, there will be powers that be that may come as opposition, right? I mentioned how prior to this past election, I made the statement jokingly that if this president got elected again, we were going to build our little place in the DR and we were just going to leave. We're just going to be done with it. And then I realized we can't leave because we're leaving family behind, we're leaving parents, children, grandchildren, siblings, friends behind. And it's not as easy for everybody to just pick up and go. And the reality is that we can't leave because we have to stay and fight, right? And what are we fighting? We're fighting for economic empowerment for everybody, right? And so there's systemic issues that we have to deal with. We can't bury our head in the sand. We got to face them head on because it's not enough for us to get ourselves in a good position. And then everybody else that we love and care about is still struggling. So we got to stay back and fight. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we got a fighter on the line. I'm trying to tell you the truth. Listen, I want you guys, again, I need for you guys to share this broadcast right now. Text your friend, tell a neighbor, tag your neighbor. I'm telling you, today we are honored to welcome a true kingdom-minded trailblazer as our special guest on the Abundant Way Ministries podcast. He goes by the name of Floyd Bryant. Floyd Bryant is a licensed minister. He's an entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist, a life coach, an author. He's an economic powerhouse. He's also the co-creator of Entrepreneuropoly. Yes, I said Entrepreneuropoly. It's a game-changing board game that combines the fun of Monopoly with the mindset of cash flow. So I don't know if we love the cash flow game. I don't know if any of you have ever played the cash flow game by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We play it online. We haven't played it in a while.
We haven't played it in a while.
But we used to play it online all the time. So, and then I know you guys have heard of Monopoly. So what Minister Bryant has done, he has combined the two. I can't wait to get my hands on this game. Not only that, Minister Bryant is the president of Alternative Capital, Inc. That's an A+, Better Business Bureau rated national lending firm with an FDIC-insured online bank. Yes, this is the Black president of a online bank. Minister Bryant has helped fund millions in startup and growth capital up to $30 million for entrepreneurs and organizations across the U.S. and its territories. He also serves as the president-elect of the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta, an award-winning mentoring organization, and chairs the Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation, providing cultural awareness and summer camps for the youth. I said the Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant. Yes, he is the proud husband of Reverend Gwendolyn Bryant. She's not on the call with us today, but hopefully she's listening in, and maybe one day we'll be able to get her on the show as well. He's the proud husband of Reverend Gwendolyn Bryant. He's a father. He's a dedicated vegan for 18 years, and he's also, and as I mentioned, he's the chair of the Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation, which provides cultural awareness summer camps for children. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together and help me welcome Minister Floyd Bryant. Minister Bryant, you probably never heard it like that before, had you?
I tell you, I have it.
We are absolutely honored to have you on as our special guest. Mm-hmm. You and I have been talking behind the scenes, and as I mentioned, we've been doing an economic empowerment series for the year of 2025. And so what we've been doing is every third Tuesday, we have been inviting a special guest. We missed last month because we were talking about generational wealth. And I always like to bring someone who's relevant to the conversation. And I was taken back that I really didn't, after all of that talk, I really didn't know anyone personally who was a product of generational wealth or who was building true generational wealth. And it was a sad commentary that said that's something that we have to change, because we throw that word out there, we throw that term out there. And then I looked and I was going through my Rolodex and I was like, no, I don't really have a speaker that I can bring on who I can say, yep, he or she is a product of generational wealth and they're carrying it forward. But today, when we started talking about how social justice impacts economic empowerment, when you and I met, we met at a mutual friend's house a few weeks back, and you began to tell me what you were doing, and you were giving history with it. I was like, this is my guy. This is my guy. So I am so pleased and honored that you have accepted the invitation to join us this evening. And so before we get in, I just want to ask if there's anything that you want to share with the people about yourself, about your family, about what you guys have going on.
Well, first of all, I'm certainly honored to be on your platform to just talk about economic empowerment, anything that can impact people in general, whether it's Black and brown people, whether it's poor white people, whether just people in general, because economics is critical for our success and likelihood to be productive and within mainstream America, as well as those that are in high level network livers and so forth. I think it's really important that we have a platform where we can share economic importance with kids and the parents, the upbringing, because that's the only way we're going to get out of a lot of challenges that we face when we're going through anxiety, perplexity, and distress. We're doing that because we don't understand the importance of credit. We don't understand the importance of balancing a checkbook. We don't understand the importance of spending less than you bringing in. If you spend more than you bring in, you're going to always have some challenges and need help with economic empowerment. And I also am grateful that you mentioned my wife. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but when you mention her, you touch my heart. And so, that's,
and I can tell that is your heart right there. Every time we say her name, I see you smile.
That's my heart. And of course, I am a proud member of the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta. And 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta is actually an award-winning chapter amongst 106 chapters throughout the United States and the world. And because we do have a chapter in London too. We've been blessed with chapter of the year as well as mentor of the year and so forth and so on. So we are known as the worker bees amongst all the other chapters and so forth. So, I'm proud to be affiliated with that as president-elect. And I'm also honored to be a part of Floyd Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation as chairman. And I chair a group of board members that are all women. They are very, very meticulous, very, very talented. And we also have 2 doctors on our board.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yes. And so
are those medical doctors?
No, they are actually doctors of education. One of them is more or less could be considered that because she does a lot of therapy related stuff with mental health and what have you. But they are extremely talented, and I feel like God had opened doors that between the board members that we have with the 100 Black Men, the board member that we have with the foundation and all, God has just set it up where we can actually go out and to the byways and highways and truly make a mark that can't be erased. We can actually help these kids, help those that are less fortunate, and then help those that, get to the next level. As I tell kids all the time, if you say you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. Right. So we try to fill in the gap and encourage them that they can become whatever they want to become, because we know that the kids become what they see.
Oh yeah,
cool,
absolutely.
Well, awesome. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to ask 2 things. One, what inspired you and Reverend Gwendolyn to start the Floyd and Gwendolyn Foundation? And
yes.
Go ahead.
My late father-in-law was actually a member. He was a honorary member of the 100 Black Men up in the Carolinas. So he was always interested in helping the kids and those that was less fortunate. When he passed, we wanted to touch more kids. At the time, I was a member of the 100 Black Men, and I felt like sometime, there would be opportunity where we could help certain kids, and we had to go through board approval and so forth. So, unfortunately, we didn't have all the boots in the street, and we couldn't help everybody. So I felt like if we started a foundation where we can assist in giving scholarship to those that wasn't able to get scholarship, maybe through the 100 or some other nonprofits and whatnot, we could provide scholarships to kids to go to certain colleges, but we would also teach these kids certain skill levels. We taught them, we did a Shark Tank, we did a debate and so forth. We'll create certain scenarios that they would we teach these kids. For example, we had a debate contest last year, and some of the parents said, "Isn't this a little too difficult for them?" and so forth. And it was on a 2 weeks camp. I said, "You know what? These kids are just like sponges.
Mhm.
You have confidence in them and believe in them, and encourage them on what they can do.
Mhm.
They would do it."
That's right.
They gave the presentation. It literally blew the grandmothers, the mothers, the parents, and so forth away.
Wow.
You know, and we were privileged to be able to give some cash to the winners, as well as we gave them a tablet that was given to us from the sponsors, and paid for their tablet for a whole year of service for free. You know, and in our camp, our summer camp, we feed them lunch and snacks throughout the day too.
Mhm.
And we have one of the brothers from the 100, Henry Cleves. He'll come over and help them with their golf skills and so forth. And you know, we would teach them with academics and all to try to help them with their algebra and their basic math and so forth. We would take them on field trips. We took them to Chick-fil-A headquarters and so forth. We took them to Bronner Brothers, to Dale Bronner, and see how they started that up. Took them to the Delta Flight Museum,
Okay.
what have you. So we would take them to certain places to expand their horizon. We even took them to Imperial Fairs, which is a Moroccan restaurant up in Beverly Hills. Duluth. I'm sorry, Duluth, Georgia. Yeah, we took them there and just taught them about the different types of foods and so forth. And so we'll take them out to eat at different food. We took them to tour the Atlanta Braves, you know, because we don't want our kids to just be limited to hamburgers and hot dogs.
Right.
I feel like if we can broaden their horizon, it also give them the heart to want to know more and learn more beyond, you know, the confines of their neighborhood or their city.
That exposure is important.
You know, so that's important. You know, I mean, you know, sometimes it's tough for these kids to understand the importance of God if they can't get beyond their household.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
So we got to broaden the horizon. So between Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation, our cultural awareness, and being a part of the #1 mentoring organization in the world of 100 Black men, you know, I think, you know, God has just given us a platform to just do more of His work.
Okay, good.
That's awesome.
So then, what led to the alternative capital?
Well, you know, all my life, I thought that it was important that we as Black people understand the importance of credit and finances. Because, you know, as I grew up, I knew a lot of Blacks, and, you know, and people in general that was successful in their own right as far as their employment or their business. But yet, you know, my wife would always mention some of them are living in $1 million home, but doesn't have any food in the refrigerator. So why is that? Why is it that you got a guy making $500,000 a year, but he's not living as well as the guy making $80,000 a year? It's because your decisions create your destination.
Okay.
So they decided, you know, to spend more and earn less. I mean, we can use professional athletes as an example. 80% of the athlete, once they stop playing ball, you know, they become financially destitute. You know, because they don't prepare for the future. What is that quote? That people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan.
That's right.
So, you know, the average time frame for a football player or an athlete may be 3 to 5 years. Well, for 3 to 5 years, if you're making $1 million a year or more, you need to prepare for the next 50 years that you may be living.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case. So you'll see a lot of brothers with 3 and 4 cars and 5 cars and so forth. And if you understand the importance of economic empowerment, you realize that when you drive off the lot, that vehicle depreciate.
Yep.
So you'll become, and then a lot of those guys that make millions never pay cash for their house. They'll just get a house. And I've had clients that have had poor credit, but was making millions a year, and they'll be in a palatial neighborhood, gated community, and they'll be paying 10% interest on their home, while the neighbors are paying anywhere between 3 to 5% interest. So, and don't realize that, guy, you're not going to be paying 30 years for that 30-year loan. So what are you going to do after those 3 or 5 years? You're not making the same money. Half of those guys didn't finish college, and so, and then, they always have people in their presence that got the next quick, get rich quick scheme.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, they are taking advantage of. So we create alternative capital. One of the things that we do, for example, let's say that someone want to open up a restaurant. Say he got a background, he's an old chef of Hyatt Regency or what have you for the last 10 years. He want to open up a restaurant. He's got good credit and so forth. And when we look at his balance sheets and do a cost analysis and all, we see that he may need $400,000. Well, this is what we would do. It typically will take us about 45 days to fund him. In the process, we teach them financial literacy as we prepare them for that loan.
Right.
We teach them the importance of profit and loss. We teach them the importance of cost analysis. We also teach them what EBITDA is important. That's EBITDA. That's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. See, this is a metric where we can determine the health of the business. We teach them this because he may be the best cook, but if we don't teach him how to run his business, how to handle payroll and so forth, every year or so, he need money to make payroll. So we teach these guys so they don't become over leveraged. Because if they become over leveraged, that's going to impact us. Because in most cases we put a UCC lien on their house and all, but it ain't going to do us no good if they can't sell the house.
Right.
If they sell it, we'll get our money back. But what if they can't?
Right.
Because contrary to popular belief, when you get dealing with these athletes or people that have low credit scores and things of that nature, what happens after they finish playing football, people with 500, 600 credit scores don't live in palatial neighborhood.
That's right.
They're in apartments, maybe high-end apartments or whatever, but they are not getting bangs for their bucks for their money and so forth. Right. So we try to teach them. That's important because we if you teach them how to manage the money, then they're gonna come back to you, and then you loan them $400,000. Now 5 years later, hey, Mr. Bryant, can we get $1 million? That's our objective.
Right.
Now it's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
I think that's an excellent idea because there are so many people who they have a great idea for a business, and the first thing that comes to their mind is I need money. But if they don't have the business acumen to be able to run the business and manage the money, they're a high risk individual.
Not just high risk, but usually when you ask them how much money they need, they never know.
They don't know.
And
they just know they need some money.
Yes, and so, but for those that do know how much they may need, let's say they need $100,000. I'm always advising them to get twice as much as what you think you need,
Yeah.
because there are some idiosyncrasies and things that happen that you're not prepared for. You know, when you are positive and very optimistic, you're only thinking about the successes when you start that business.
Right.
You know, there's a reason 60% of businesses fail within the first 2 years.
Mhm.
There's a reason banks, traditional banks, don't loan businesses money anywhere in the country if you've been in business less than 2 years. There's a very big reason for that. So it's really important to understand your purpose. You know, what are you planning on doing? You know, look at the competitive landscape, see what's going on in the community, you know, in your sphere of where you want to be. If you want to be a chef, do you want to be the best chef? Research other chefs, chefs that you want to emulate, and things of that nature. You know, so if you do those things, you got a better chance. But in addition to that, the most important thing that, you know, a lot of business people don't usually inundate within their business acumen, and that's prayer. Mark 11:24, he said, if you pray for it and ask for it and believe that you will receive it, you will have it.
That's right.
So it's really important to keep a prayer life in your pursuit of business acumen or success as well. And believe in what you're praying for. Because if you do, you may not know how to manage your business initially, but because of your prayer, God will put the right people in your life so that you can create a roadmap that will take you to ultimate success, and it'll become unprecedented.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love the fact that you guys now you are not only the president, but you're a founder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I love the fact that we have a brother who's a founder of, now is Alternative Capital a bank?
No, Alternative Capital was on its own initially. We was a private lender.
Okay.
And we went through challenges for years before we was able to get a bank and all. And then we took it another step, and we had to go through some other compliance regulations and so forth in order to get it to be FDIC insured. And that was important because if there's a lot of banks throughout the United States, but if you're a bank and you're not FDIC insured, you know, that's a high risk scenario. As you understand, Alternative Capital is A+ by the Better Business Bureau. So if you want to borrow money from a private lender, you probably, if you understand business, would go to A+ Better Business Bureau than someone that just a lender.
Right.
Because now you're taking a chance. So with the FDIC, the Federal Department of Insurance Corporation, your money is insured up to $250,000 principal only, per account. Okay, so you got that insurance there. So what's the difference between us and Wells Fargo? Nothing. Wells Fargo is a household name. We deal with a lot of referrals and people that know us and clients that have used us and all. We are just like that community bank, but online, because you can pick up the phone and call me. Any of you guys know the president of Wells Fargo?
No.
I don't.
Yeah, so you can't do that. So, people still, love customer service, love to be treated as if they're the most important people in the presence, whether they give you their money in a bank or any aspect and all. And once you do that, they keep coming back. Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a great segue into our topic of discussion for today, which is how social justice impacts economic empowerment. Because when we talk about banks and lending institutions, historically, for Black and brown people, the playing field has not been level. And it sounds to me like with companies like Alternative Capital, and there may be some others out there, but with companies like Alternative Capital Inc., that gives us the opportunity to level the playing field. And what I love about it is that you said not only do you lend money, but you teach in the process. So a lot of people think it's about, I need $1 million, but the real question is, what is it going to take for you to become a billionaire? In other words, it's the $1 million shouldn't be the goal. What should be the goal is what you have to become in order to get to the $1 million. And so what you're doing is you're helping to not only fund people's dreams, but you're shaping the person in the process. So if you don't mind, I mean, when I say historically, we can look back at the Wells Fargos, and before that, I think it was with Covia, and of course, we still got the Chases and all of that. Historically, I know for a fact that everyone's not treated equally.
No. So, everyone is not treated equal. Well, let's look at economic empowerment first of all. Sometimes we want to teach economic empowerment, but we forgot to understand that a lot of people don't know what that means.
Right. Yeah.
So let's look at economic empowerment. What that is when money is a resource needed in a community. Okay, because it enables the community to fund programs, provide assistance to those in need. So what we need is education. So we have to know the importance of, the simplest thing I can tell you is this. If you make $100 a week and you spend $50 a week for your bills, you're going to always have a plus $50. You always have money. Right. But if you make $100 a week and you spend $200 a week, you're going to have some challenges.
You're going to have some challenges.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to have a domino effect, not just on your finances, but on your FICO score, your credit score, your Fair Isaac credit score. And that is really critical. So, you need education. That's the first thing you need in order to understand economic empowerment. The second thing you need is economic stability. So in order to get economic stability, you truly got to understand, where are you financially? Where are you in your FICO? Because your credit and your finances are really critical. Now, you got to have a budget.
Right.
You see, because if you don't have a budget, you might go in the grocery store with the intention of buying a box of cornflakes, and you come out of there with cornflakes, chicken liver, mashed potatoes, ice cream, and everything else.
I do it all the time. I'll do it all the time, Mr. Bryant.
Your intention were to spend $20, and you walking out of there, even before the tariff,
right.
You created your own tariff.
Coming out of there with $80. Now, if you like most people, they go to the grocery store 3 times a week. So let's say you was planning on, if you decide to budget, you was putting away $200 a month for grocery. But if you're going 3 times a week and you spending $80 each of those days, you just spent $240 that week.
That week.
And you know what? You didn't even plan that. You sat back and said, now, where did my money go?
Right.
Because you did not budget it. Okay? Now, so when we have those challenges, we got to look at economic justice. What is economic justice? It relates to fairness in our economy. So, fairness. My wife, remember years ago, when this Caucasian gentleman who owned a restaurant wanted to borrow $60,000. Now, the reason she remembered that so keenly because this black guy wanted to borrow $40,000. They declined it.
Mm.
This white guy wanted to borrow, and he was living in Ainsley Mall area. And she remembered that he didn't even have insurance, business insurance. That's one of the requirements to have your general liability or your errors and omission or your business and so forth. He said, I get it, but he didn't have it. But they approved him for that $60,000. So, that's not being fair.
And the black gentleman did he have his insurance?
He had his insurance and everything. They felt like, his money was kind of off and on. He would make $20,000 one month, 15 the next month, 20 the next month, 15 the next month. They said his money was unstable.
And that's what happens in business, though.
It does. But the bottom line was, it wasn't fair.
Right.
It wasn't economic justice. Because economic justice want to provide everyone with the opportunity to be productive, to be fair. So, in that case, if that Caucasian guy would have gotten approved, that black guy prior to him should have gotten approved. Matter of fact, the black guy had better FICO too. And sometimes in business, we'll look at the paydex score, which is the business credit. However, if most businesses don't know how their paydex score works. When you start a business, you get a 9-digit Dun & Bradstreet number, but you don't know how it works. It doesn't work like the FICO. If you late paying a bill with your FICO, it'll ding you. You late, your score going to go down. With business credit, let's say you've been renting a place for the last 2 years. You need to let them know that you've always paid your rent on time and so on and on. It'll take your score up.
Okay.
Now, a good score on a business credit is 80 to 100. A good score with FICO is anywhere from 700 to 850.
Right.
The highest you can go is 850. But that is critical. So when you get fair economic justice, you will then have access to jobs, credit, resources, and all, because understand that some of the higher paying jobs now check your credit before they even decide if they want to hire you.
That's absolutely true.
So you might have a guy that just finished Clark College, but all them credit cards he got before that he was just spending it like it was candy.
On top of the student loan,
500 credit score, he may be a very good student and a potential job candidate, but they won't hire him.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really important.
The credit cards that they give you, and on top of the student loans that you're leaving with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see, with the student loans, you got to pay it. There's no way of getting around that. That's one bill you can't outrun. And so it's really important for people to understand these importance, because then that would lead to a lot of income equality. It's really important that a black man doing the same job as a white man should get paid the same thing.
That's right.
And for so many years, you get men that were getting paid more than women. White men paid more than black men, and so on and on and on. That is a challenge within economic justice, because that's very unfair. Okay. And that's why you had terms like DEI come along. Okay, which was critical. And then, okay, just to get to that DEI piece, I think it's critical. I really do. You know, it's been shut down. Well, let's talk about it. DEI.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
Mhm.
Diversity. What is that D? You know, it ensures that the representations of all races, genders, sexual orientation, religion, political belief, social economic statures, and all try to be treated fair. Not just Black people, but people in general, whether they gay, whether they are different origins, are from different countries, and all. That's diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Buford Highway, you call it a melting pot. Melting pot is nothing but a word for diversity. It's diverse.
Mhm.
Equity. Equity is making sure everyone has the same opportunity and support.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Black people.
Right.
It's just being fair.
Right.
Now, it benefited a lot of Blacks that was smart, that was qualified, and all that, because they had to take a look at them.
Mm-hmm.
You see, but that is not the reason that certain Blacks have gained success in so many different aspects of life and
Mhm.
business.
Mm-hmm.
Inclusion, making sure everyone should feel respected and valued.
Mm-hmm.
No little jokes in the boardroom about, you know, watermelon and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and with this equity, first of all, we have to understand that equality is not just about race.
Mm-hmm.
Equality is just about being fair,
Right.
Mhm.
period. You know, so when they did away with DEI, it, it really not only gave us some indications of some of the challenges and reminded us that this country, there's a lot of love in this country, but there's a lot of hate and racism too.
That's true.
Mhm.
That's
You
true.
know, when I look at doing away with DEI, I think about redlining,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
you know, because for so many years, Black people couldn't buy certain homes in certain neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And when the mortgage companies and the federal loans, FHAs and so forth, was trying to approve people for certain housing,
Mm-hmm.
if you came out of a certain zip code or if you had a certain skin color,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was tough for you to get that American dream.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mr. Ford, let me ask you this question, because you know historically, Black and brown people have been known to be able to turn lemons into lemonade.
Mhm.
Do you think that there is anything positive that can come out of the removal of DEI?
Yes, I do. And I'm glad you made that point that Black and brown people can turn lemon into lemonade,
Mm-hmm.
simply because, you know, because we had less, we learned to improvise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was talking the other day about, you know, collard greens actually came from Africa, but the white people would get collard greens for their meal, and the Black people would have poke salad and so forth.
Mm.
You know, so
What
we
do you call it? Poke salad.
pork salad.
Pork salad.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, you know, we would improvise. So what does that mean? If we don't have DEI, that bring us closer together. That may be a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because if we start working together, we understand that we can't just rely on the government and the government offerings and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Right.
You know, when we I think it all goes back to whether it be DEI, economic empowerment, social justice, or what have you. We first and foremost need to keep the Bible in the middle of this
Mm-hmm.
and realize with the men that are dealing with this, because we are typically the head of our houses, we have to understand that in Proverbs 29:17, it says, iron sharpen iron so one man can sharpen the other.
That's good.
So if we don't have DEI, we do have one another.
That's right.
You know, there's two scriptures that's more important than anything. The first, thou shalt have no other God before me. And the second, love thy neighbor as thyself. If we could do those two things, we won't have a DEI challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
We
true.
won't have these problems and issues and so forth.
Yeah.
And if we keep the word in the midst of our businesses, we'll understand that in Isaiah, it said in Isaiah 1:19, if you're willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Now, see, the good of the land mean that you having your own collard green.
Uh-huh.
No more poke salad.
You're
No
right.
more poke
and you know what, Minister Bryant, that's a great segue into my last question, which is, what role does the church, or should the church, you know, ministers like myself and you and Reverend Gwendolyn, what role should we be playing in terms of economic empowerment and social justice? Because so many people think that the church is just for, you know, emotionalism and running around shouting, which has its place. There's a time and a place, but I think, you know, speak to where you think the church should also play a role in this.
Well, you know, that's a good point. You know, because you know, the word said that many are called, but few are chosen.
Uh-huh.
And what I mean by that is, you can see in most cities, you probably see 20 churches in a 5-mile radius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And half of those ministers and pastors and all don't even know one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep.
So if we're going to have a DEI scenario where it brings people together, shouldn't that bring the pastors, the ministers, and all them together? What is the true epitome of Proverbs 27:17? Iron sharpening iron. See, what we have to do first is learn to collaborate and love one another and work together. Because you know what? The people outside of the church is watching the shepherds.
Mm-hmm.
They're watching us as we lead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are just there for emotional, i.e. just for tithe,
Mm-hmm.
and not really speaking
it,
what is relevant
Right.
Mm-hmm.
at all, people will see that. And then they'll jump from one church to the other until they feel like, you know, the God has called them to that church where they feel like they're being fed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we look back at the 60s, during King time and all, right during the civil rights movement and all,
Mm-hmm.
the church was the foundational place for our people as a whole.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even not too long ago, when politicians would run for offices,
Mm-hmm.
they would go into the church
Go to
and
church.
wanted to speak to the congregation,
Uh-huh.
usually at one time, but they went to the church
Yes, they
because
did.
they knew that that pastor or whatever led a flock. And if that pastor invited them in, usually the congregation followed whatever the pastor recommendations were.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think
We as people of Christ, our leaders, the ministers and all, I think our job is truly to show love to one another
Mm-hmm.
so that those people that are looking for guidance, that don't understand that we all should have an evangelistic spirit to be able to reach out to those that are less fortunate and share with them the love of God. But before we do that, we got to alleviate that Sigmund Freud mindset, the id and the ego. Some pastors mad because that preacher got a Mercedes, and the other pastor mad because that preacher got 600 in his congregation and he only got 100.
Right.
Now, if we keep doing that and all, we need to look in the mirror and see which one of us was called and chosen.
Right.
Because it wasn't all of them.
So you made a great point. Like during the civil rights era, the church did play a significant role in terms of social justice. Do you think that the church should also play a more practical role now? Like, could the church be a place where economic empowerment is taught, budgeting is taught, entrepreneurship is taught, and all of those things that you mentioned earlier that would help a person succeed in business? So we got the spirituality part, but what about the practical part?
I think that's a very important question, and I think that it should be, but this is the challenge. As a finance man, some of the biggest challenges people that have credit issues, financial issues, and whatnot are the 3 Ps. And let me tell you who those 3 Ps are. They are painters, policemen, and pastors.
Say that again.
Painters, policemen, and pastors.
So
in essence, we really got to teach the pastors and the ministers first the importance of financial literacy,
right,
and then allow them to open it to their flock. Because if most of the people that go to church that do have challenges emotionally, spiritually, financially, are people that are looking for that minister to have the answers to their challenges. And sometimes the minister have his own challenges. Neither one. If he don't know how to manage your checkbook and you don't know how to manage the checkbook, he don't want to be the blind leading the blind. So he teaching you what the word said, but he got to live it himself. So we have to change our leadership model to let them understand that our congregation become what they see. If they following us, if we, one of the biggest problems is some pastors wearing too many hats. They got to understand the importance of delegation. If you got a guy in your church that is a banker and he's a successful banker, let him give some classes on financial literacy. If you got someone in your church that deals with mental health and so forth, a psychologist or whatever, allow that person to spend time with folks that want to be private, but they are dealing with demons and so forth. We have to, the church got to be an incubation for all types of people and all types of sinful people. We can't be those people that we have given our life to God. Now Ray, the ex-drug dealer, come in and we rolling our eyes, or we tell him, he coming in here to church.
Right.
He gave it, and he tied it $200. Well, everybody else give him 20. Now nobody want that drug money. Well, he ain't planning on selling drugs anymore. He's looking for help.
Right.
So we have to be able to identify those people that are looking for the guidance. And that start with the pastor. Pastor can't wear too many hats because one of those hats ain't gonna be able to fit.
That's right.
Right.
That's
excellent.
Good. Well, I want to call you Dr. Bryant so bad because you have that anointing on you. It's rested on you.
Well, when I usually go home and see my wife, I am a doctor. I call myself Dr. Feelgood.
Now I'm gonna play this. We're gonna play this back to her, right?
I didn't know that, but now I'm glad I said it.
And speaking of Reverend Bryant, I think we probably want to do another session with the both of you guys on here, because we do have one coming up later in the year that talks about the family. I think you guys would be a great team, you know, to talk about that issue. So we're going to talk about that as well later. But Minister Bryant, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you on our podcast this evening. Again, we thank you. We thank Reverend Bryant for sharing you with us in her absence. You said she's out running errands, taking care of business. And again, we want people to know who you guys are. So if you could tell us, you know, tell everybody how they can connect with you and Reverend Gwendolyn with the Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation, and also how they can connect with you and the Alternative Capital Incorporated. Is it incorporated? Alternative Capital Incorporated? Yeah. So tell us how we can connect with you.
Well, with Floyd and Gwen Bryant Foundation, you can go to the website, www.floyd, Floyd, and A-N-D, Gwen, Gwen, Foundation.com. The official name is Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation. As far as Alternative Capital, you could actually call them and schedule a conference with myself or one of our lenders. And you can, that number is 404-620-3281. 404-620-3281. And also in reference to the Bryant Foundation, this Friday, June the 20th, we are having a workshop development conference at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. It's going to take place from 9 to 1. We're going to cover the 4 E's. We will have a panelist there that will talk about 4 E's. We'll have, with one of the first E's, it's going to be enrollment. And the enrollment is for those that are interested in going to colleges and so forth. So we will have colleges there, and all for those kids. And of course, we have enlisted. The other E is enlist. We will have people from the Air Force, military. They will help them with those that are interested in going into the military, may not be interested in going to college. We will also have employment. Employment, we have a gentleman that is a senior level at his business, and they're offering $28 an hour straight out of high school. And they also offer tuition reimbursement for those that want to decide to go to college. And, you know, he would be there and have applications to start you right then and there on the spot to get you situated. Okay. And then, of course, we will have entrepreneurship. We'll have a young lady there that has been an entrepreneur for the last, she just turned 24, and as of last year, she earned $1.5 million as an entrepreneur. So we're going to talk to the kids and try to keep them encouraged and let them know that they can truly become what they see. And then in addition to that, we are going to feed everyone too. And we're going to feed them some good Jamaican food. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's 9 to 1 this Friday.
Okay.
At the Atlanta Community Food Bank.
Let me make sure I got that website address right. Is it www.floydandgwenfoundation.com?
Yes, sir. You got it right.
We got it up there. We got one question for you, Minister Bryant. Robin Davis, that's my sister actually. She asked, "Do you work with other businesses out of the state?"
Well, we work with businesses throughout all 50 states, as well as the U.S. territories, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and some areas of Canada as well.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. the benefit of being online. Thank God for technology. Okay. Well, again, we appreciate your time. And I know I've got a ton of questions, but I have the benefit of asking you offline. So for those of y'all who were quiet, shame on you. Yeah. Again, we want to thank you. You have anything you want to say before we end the call?
I took notes.
We definitely took notes.
Well, it was certainly an honor and a pleasure to collaborate with a mighty man and woman of God. I think that's the key component. Whether we're successful in our endeavors, whether it be business, employment, or what have you, we have to always find an opportunity to give God the glory so that people realize that the true key to success is putting God at the head and not the tail. And if we do that, all of these desires to be entrepreneurs, to be gainfully employed, to be happily married, or whatever the issue would be yours. And so it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys again. I'm going to ask my wife about us teaming up, and in which we team up. I won't say much of nothing. I'll let her do all the talking. all I say is, yes, dear. Yes, dear.
And before you go, Minister Bryant, do you also help other nonprofits?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do. Not only do we help them, we can create nonprofits, and we compete with LegalZoom and all. We can set up their bylaws and so forth. We do that, as well as we offer sponsorship to other nonprofits that's in the same space that we are in. You can go to our website and check out the grants that we offer. And when we do offer our grants, and we make sure that the grants are easily accessible and not so difficult to obtain.
Okay.
Awesome.
So what does a person have to do to apply for those grants?
Go online and look at the requirements.
Okay.
It basically, if they have a nonprofit, we'll request a few things like their articles and some information on them, the history and so forth, but it's just the traditional basic stuff that we ask. We want to make sure they've done the work, and then we do our own research to make sure that they are active and so forth as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Well, we'll be calling you. The Abundant Way Ministries will be calling you, and the many
other hats that we have,
the other hats that we wear. We're gonna be definitely keeping in touch.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be honored, me and my wife, and I appreciate you, and I thank God for you creating this platform to get this information out. So because you never know if one person got something off of this information that we shared today. Thank God for it. That's a blessing in itself.
Amen.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Minister Floyd Bryant of the Floyd and Gwendolyn Bryant Foundation and Alternative Capital Inc. Ladies and gentlemen, if you missed it, just tell a friend, tell a neighbor, share the broadcast. Yeah. Until we meet again, we'll see you guys next Tuesday, same time, same station. We love you, and good night.
Good night.